Hey guys, it's Cyrus of Chaos. Today I'm here with Jon Normile, and we're going to be talking about the finals of World Championships from Moscow in 2015 between Gautier Grumier and Geza Imre. Geza Imre was an Olympic bronze medalist in 1996, and here he is again in the finals of World Championships almost 20 years later, which is pretty crazy and shows how long you can stay relevant in Epee compared to the other weapons. But I'm going to let Jon introduce himself and set up the bout a little bit, and then we'll get right into it. So, Jon, take it away.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Right, as Andrew said, Jon Normile. I've also had a very long fencing career, although not nearly as illustrious as the two people we're going to see today. I have not fenced either one of these people, but back 25 odd years ago when I was living and fencing in Hungary, Imre Geza was just starting out, and shortly thereafter he made the Hungarian national team, and they had all kinds of success in the mid-90s through the 2000s, and his career was kind of bracketed by, in addition to his individual medal, they had a silver medal at the Olympics in '92, and then in 2008 they had another silver medal. And then 7 years after that, Imre Geza is still fencing, and he goes on and fences in this World Championship final match. And by that time, he was a true master of Hungarian fencing. He was a technical textbook of how to fence. And on the other side, Gautier Grumier, he was after my time. I stopped fencing internationally before he made his appearance. But he's a master of the French school, which, as most of the viewers probably know, is all about the point. The point is all the be-all and end-all. It's so the point more than the blade. Not hardly any parry ripostes. The idea is to avoid your opponent's blade to score the point. And Gautier Grumier is also highly successful. I believe he's a 3-time World Cup champion. He never won a World Championships. He never won an Olympic medal. And Andrew, if you want to start the video, the first comment I had on this bout is the difference in demeanor between these two fencers, where, as I see it, Gautier Grumier is here to win the bout. He is not here to have any fun. He wants to win. He is deadly serious. And Imre Geza is remarkably relaxed. He walked in like this is the most comfortable place in the world for him. And I get the sense that being a veteran fencer with maybe a third act to his fencing career, being 40 years old, he has nothing to lose, and everything is a win for him just by the fact that he's here and he can still compete at this level.
Yeah, totally.
And with that kind of attitude, it's a big advantage. It just the weight of expectation is lifted from your shoulders.
Yeah, this is also the second world final that Grumier has been in. I think the first one was in 2010, and he lost to Navaschalov, right?
Yeah, that's right. So here they go. And this is, of course, a terrible camera angle, but I know that gets better a few touches later.
Yes, this is not good.
So they say fencing is like chess. This is the opening move. This is moving the pawns out to see what the other fence is all about, and also to see what you're all about, how fast you are, how do you relate to your opponent.
Yeah, I kind of think about this from the perspective of someone who doesn't fence epee as like seeing kind of what you can get away with on the other person. Would you say that's accurate?
I would. And moreover, it's seeing what you can get away with, seeing just to get a sense of the speed and reaction and your initial reconnaissance about the other fencer, and also about you, to see who you're bringing onto the strip, see how quick you. And from that basis, from that initial reconnaissance, then you start to try and come up with a solution to win the bout.
Yeah.
All right, so it was a 1-1. An attack from Grumier with a. Well, okay, here we go to the current touch. An attack from Imre with a counterattack from Grumier. A simple counterattack.
Grumier is all about counterattacks. He is proof of what you can do if your point control is amazing and you have really good absence of blade.
Yes. Okay, pause it for a second. So the previous touch was pretty much exactly the same as this touch, where Imre made an attack on the blade with an advanced lunge. This point here, the distance was a little bit different from the next point. He was a little bit too close for an advanced lunge, and it gave Grumier a chance for a counterattack before Imre could bring his point back.
Yeah, this time he starts from a little farther away and accelerates a bit better.
A little further away, so he got away with a double. Pause it again. I'll just say one other comment. Imre and Hungarians in general have a technique of a very dynamic point. So pretty much all the actions are done with a coupe. So it's a cutting motion. It's almost like maybe it's from the saber tradition. And it's effective. It lets you hit the parallel target of the arm a lot. But there's a disadvantage in that the point's off the line for a moment, and it gives the opponent a chance to make a counterattack, which is what happened in the second touch. That point was in the middle of its cut. Grumier was close enough for the counterattack.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that pretty much through the whole bout.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation, and that's something that Grumier's really good at. He just leaves his tip on your target, and a lot of the time people will just get picked by it.
Well, let's see what he does. Actually, he fences a little bit differently than I would normally expect to see him fence.
Grumier or Imre? Grumier.
Yeah. Okay, that was a brilliant touch. That was a second intention parry riposte from Geza Imre. He comes in, he closes the distance, provoking, inviting. Grumier attacks, and it's, I believe, a parry riposte.
Yeah.
Can we see it one more time?
Sure. Let's watch real time.
I don't know. Do you think that's a parry riposte or not?
I can hear the blade contact. I think that... Yeah. I think it was parry riposte. Because in the slow-mo, when you look at it, you can see that, like... right there. So you can see that Imre... that Grumier's point is basically on Imre, but he just missed. And I think that's because Imre's blade displaced his point a little bit.
What I saw in that last... replay was a circle 6 parry riposte from Imre.
Yep, exactly.
Right, and that's the Hungarian classical technique.
Yeah, offensive defense almost.
Neither
of these fences are looking to concede any ground. It's all taking place in the middle at the moment.
That's a good observation by the commentator, actually.
Oh, I lost you for a second.
It's okay. Let's go back. Yeah, I can hear you. Let's go back a little bit.
Looking to concede any ground. It's all taking place in the middle at the moment.
So that's an interesting observation by the commentator who's live at this event. He said that neither of these guys want to go backwards too much, and it's all taking place in like the first zone.
That's true, and you'll see that through the whole bout. These guys are not playing the game where somebody's nursing the lead, looking to do a counter action when the other person has to chase.
Yeah. And they're both a little more comfortable on defense, so neither is willing to push too much.
Okay, and you see that's that cutting action from Grumier, that Hungarian coupe attack.
Another double.
Lots of doubles this bout.
Yes, there are.
Now we're moving back a little bit.
That's nice. That's nice. I think both of these guys are pretty nice fellows.
Oh, because the shoe was untied, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's some fencers in the world who would point at the shoe and then try and hit the guy.
This stage, though, I have to say that it's Grumier that's the one that's now starting to play a little bit with the distance. Sorry, it's Imre that starts to play with the distance. Grumier is following him.
So this replay, if you pause it for a second. So right before he stopped the action, you see an action to the hand followed by an action to the body. And he's not hitting with either, but this is, I think, what Imre has settled on is the attack he's going to be using for the rest of the bout, because you'll see it. And let's proceed. Let's see what happens next.
Yeah, one of the things I've heard about the Hungarians in Epee in general is that they don't like to attack very deep very often.
Well, sometimes they do, and you'll see it in this bout. So if you pause it for a second, Grumier just scored because he anticipated what Imre was going to do, I think. Imre did a few actions of that cut to the hand, cut to the arm or the body.
Mm-hmm.
And then right away, he did it again, but he tipped his hand. Grumier was expecting it, adjusted the distance, so he was right on the hand, right there.
Yeah.
And that's really, you see that a lot in the high-level matches where a high-level fencer will respond immediately to what opportunity is presented. He'll identify a pattern, and then position himself to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it in my experience, in the best bouts I've ever fenced, I know I've done that. And I've done it in recollecting in my own thought process at an almost subconscious level. You don't really think about it, but as you're maneuvering and focusing, that's what comes out.
Yeah, it's almost like a feeling you develop over time.
Yes. Like a tactical sense to see into the future a little bit.
Yeah.
By a few seconds or moments. Okay. Right. So I'm checking my notes here. The previous touches that I was talking about, that double cut, he did it without the blade. But now he's gone to the blade. Whoop. You back with me?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay. Right. So what I was saying a moment ago, let's pause it. So those previous actions of that double pump, that double cut to the hand and the body,
Mm-hmm.
he did it with the blade, and it wasn't working very well. He got hit in the hand, for example, in the last touch.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Imre is now adjusted, and you're going to see him pretty much for the rest of the bout only going off the blade. He's going to do the same kind of thing, but it's going to be with a beat action. And that's what he does in this touch. Go ahead.
Imre answers.
Right, so it's an 8 beat or a second beat to the body.
And that's a good idea against someone like Grumier, who know is his primary method of scoring touches is generally to counterattack short target. And by controlling the blade like that, you're displacing his point, which makes that harder to do.
Yes. And that's, in general, that's the tactic against all French grip fencers. Because they're holding it at an extended pommel, it's hard to control the point, especially when a pistol grip guy is beating the blade.
Yes, it's a weaker control.
Right.
Imre has
What happened there?
Coming to play.
So it's 6-7 now?
6-6. I went back a little.
Okay.
Now Imre has teased Grumier into coming to play. And that's what he wants. He wants to be able to work off the Frenchman's blade.
So that in the replay, that was interesting. It looked like for once Grumier brings his arm way back, which could be because he just got his blade beat a second ago and was trying to avoid that action again.
Yes, exactly. And you're going to see that the rest of the bout until the very end. So Grumier is adjusting, avoiding a parry from Geza because he don't want to get parried again like he did a few touches ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he has kind of a similar coupe attack that you can see more often now. So it's 7-6 Imre. So there's that action to the hand. Short attack.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This is exactly
Ouch.
what Geza Imre wants. He wants Grumier to come after him.
I'm surprised that missed from Grumier.
Just
Right.
so
Well,
sharp, just has enough time.
a couple things on that. Bad luck.
Exactly
Yeah.
what Geza Imre wants. He wants
Can you pause it for a second?
Yeah. I want to watch the replay while we're talking.
Well, bad luck for Grumier because that was a very well executed attack, and he was right there.
Yes, he was.
Could you see how he pulls his hand back?
Yeah.
Points off the line. Imre does not take a step back.
No, he does not.
He's caught dead to rights, but because he's not where Grumier thought he was going to be with a step back, and because maybe Grumier has made a technical adjustment to get his blade away from the
Imre's blade?
Imre's blade to avoid getting parried, this is what happens. Imre was caught dead to rights.
Yes.
And he looked like he was coming back to that coupe counterattack or maybe looking for parry, which he didn't get. But his counterattack finally was quicker than Grumier's remise.
Yeah, and missing that is a big deal because now instead of it being 7-7, like it could have been if that had just been executed correctly, it's now 8-6.
Yes.
Especially against someone who likes to defend themselves as Imre does.
Mm.
just he's so sharp, just has enough time to pick up.
Yeah, that was a big
blade on
moment.
his approach,
Mm.
divert it away from his body, and then land his hit.
You can already see Imre is engaging less than he was before.
Yeah, in a sense, he is kind of nursing his lead, at least at this point in the bout.
The period's also about to be over, so... Oh!
Nothing there.
Yeah, this is a funny touch. I think Imre was showing his age a little bit, and we'll see the replay when they have the minute break. I know as an older fencer who's fenced way past my prime, your flush attack is not nearly as quick or as deep as it used to be.
Fair enough.
So 10 years younger, an Imre that was 10 years younger would have gotten that point.
Yeah, Imre just doing things up.
So what would you be telling each of the two fencers at the break that they should either be doing differently or keeping the same?
Counsel from their coaches.
Hmm.
So we again see the beautiful slow motion replays. Tamas Nagy
Well,
talking
it's kind of hard for me to answer that honestly because I know how the bout ends. Trying to forget that, I would suggest that Grumier should keep the point, stay closer to what he does best, which is use his point to snipe at the short target, and have the courage to leave the blade there
Gold medal match
on the counterattack and also the attack.
here at the World Championship.
And I tell Imre Geza, again, this is because I know what happens, that he's going to have success with, I think, the solution that he's come up with and to stick with it of preparing to the short target and then beating to the long target.
Mm.
And we'll see that now, and we'll see some variations of that.
Imre.
That was interesting.
Yeah, well, that was Grumier essentially doing the same action, the same kind of attack
Yeah.
as the previous touch where he lost. He lost again because he pulled the arm back. This time he went to the high line, but the distance was right for Geza, Imre's counterattack.
Yes. He looked a lot more prepared that time than he did the previous time.
You mean Geza?
Yes,
Imre.
Geza, sorry.
Yes, because it just happened, right? I mean, whether conscious or not, that image of what Grumier is going to do is fresh in Imre's mind.
Yeah.
You see this preparation. Oh, there we go. So that's a knife fight.
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
close.
exactly.
Imre attacked, missed, counterattack, and 2 remises. So life happens.
Yeah, it does.
Now this is a very interesting touch coming up.
And now it is Grumier.
So this time, Grumier deceived
Imre in.
Imre's Epee. And this is the classic French epee style.
Yes.
Right
Yep, he went around the blade.
Yeah. So it was the moment where Imre was going deep, and it was the right distance for Grumier for the counterattack.
Yeah.
Imre's point was out of line, one line.
And that's the risk you take when you try to control the blade and your opponent is ready for it.
Right. So if you have poor technique, it's hopeless. If you have great technique, you can do it.
That's the balance that I love about fencing. It's like an action that would work well in one situation works poorly in another, which is kind of cool.
The flesh.
Yeah,
First
that was
flesh of the second flesh. First flesh that hit. This was an interesting touch.
The attack there, very direct.
Rewind it a bit if you don't mind.
Yep, sure.
Rewind it. Okay, so pause it for a second. So Grumier is doing some preparation actions to the short target, to Imre's short target. And I'm guessing that Imre recognized that. He assumed that Grumier's focus was on the hand. Now play it and see what happens. We know what happens, but we'll see it again. Or to the hand, and to the Grumier is coming forward to the hand and flesh right into it. Another example of the moment, the action that happened a moment before being the factor to decide what you're going to do in the next moment.
I also thought this was interesting because Imre does not go for a beat this time, and you can see that Grumier's a little late to start his extension because he's trying to avoid it. So you'll see that right here.
Maybe, but I think it's I don't think so. You may be right, but I think it's more to do with
So like
the
he
fact
tries.
that Grumier was looking for the short target, and the flesh was a total surprise.
Yeah.
And if Imre had gone for the blade, then it would have been more time for Grumier to respond with a counterattack. But the fact that he didn't was the reason it succeeded.
Oh. That was not a good angle.
Well, right, an amazing tactical touch from Imre. But I think this is interesting too. Pause it for a second. So the previous touch, Imre scored because he went deep, and maybe Grumier recognized that, and he said to himself, consciously or not, Grumier's going to go deep. I have to watch out for that.
Mm-hmm.
Geza's going to go. Imre's going to go deep. I have to watch out for that. And he's thinking of guarding the flesh. And Imre immediately switches gears and goes for the short target for the hand and scores. So he's one step ahead, tactically, knowing what's going on in the bout.
Yeah.
Imre's already switched gears, and Grumier is fencing the last touch, basically.
Gotcha.
Right there.
Yeah.
And it seemed like Grumier was not expecting that at all.
He barely moved.
The world number one is going to be world champion. He's got to make a move. He does.
Okay. You with me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Super
Okay.
explosive.
So what's interesting about this touch, Imre steps back.
He does.
His counterattack is him going backwards. All of his other counterattacks that scored were
Super explosive.
pretty much where he's not going backwards, maybe reassembling a little bit. This one he seems to go back. And I think that gave time for Grumier's coupe attack to get the point on before Imre's counterattack.
Yeah.
That's what scored. So Grumier's adjusting now. And also, maybe Geza is slipping, his attention is wandering a bit. Maybe he's too happy with the last couple of touches.
Mm.
And now he's back to what he was doing before, to the short target, and then beating to the long target.
Almost even, coming right the way round into octave. It's working beautifully for the Hungarian.
Oh, that was really nice.
Drew that. Imre drew that.
Yeah.
Attack.
It looked like Grumier was going back to the short target.
Blade to get a
Imre was ready for it, and I think Grumier was lucky to get a double out of it.
Yes, exactly. He was super ready for that.
Lucky.
Yeah.
the blade to get a double up. 2 away from becoming world champion. At the
All right, getting close. 13-10, right? We're almost done.
40 years
Yeah.
old.
The sly old fox is ascending.
Oh,
Serious game.
hello. Is this a Zoom bombing?
No, it's not.
Here tonight.
40 years old.
The sly old fox is ascendant here tonight.
Right. So he went to the short target as preparation and then to the long target with a beat. But I think he did it too quickly. He got impatient.
Able to see that one coming.
And in other words,
Blade is up.
Grumier
Grumier skips away. See that one.
didn't back up, didn't have time to back up and come back, which is what
Able to see
Imre is looking for so that he's catching when he's coming forward. Grumier was still at that close enough distance to score with a counterattack.
Yeah. I also totally see what you mean about the coupe on this one.
Yeah.
Imre's
Right. I
blade
mean,
is
if
in the air.
Grumier was a step back or a little further away, it would have been different. His
Yeah.
counterattack would have been later, and Imre's point would have been on the target.
Part of it is also that Imre misses. Like right here, he had the timing, and if he hit right here, he would have gotten a light on. But he kind of just grazes the mask and then doesn't hit the body. So
Yeah, I guess you're right, yeah. Yeah, it looked like it's right on the mask.
yeah.
Grumier skips away. It hits.
And
But
it's interesting. It shows how much of this is execution. Like that was done. It was executed okay. Like it could have been better, but because it wasn't perfect, Grumier was still able to get a touch out of that.
Well, the error was the distance.
Yeah.
And it was the fact, I think, that Imre rushed it. He should have given just a moment longer for his preparation to prepare his opponent for the right action.
Yeah. Stick to your game plan, which is working.
Yes, but it's more a question of just being aware of your own anxiety and your own impatience, and now he's 2 points away from being world champion. So he's Imagine what that's like.
Yeah, exactly.
So he surrenders it.
And now we see
new one.
something we haven't seen before from Grumier.
Maybe. I was going to say maybe. Well, chip.
Same thing from Imre, and
Grumier's not done.
an attack. Was that with foot tempo? But the thing that I noticed, that's a much more classical French technique of attacking the blade. It's not a coupe thrust. It's a much more classical beating the blade without displacing the point hardly at all. And
Yeah.
It's much quicker.
That's a good observation.
And it didn't give any opportunity to step inside the point as it's off the line.
Mm.
This is a big hit.
All right.
Whoever gets the next hit, I think, is going to take the title.
Imre's being really aggressive now.
Yeah.
That's a double.
Doing the same thing.
Yes,
Um,
you were right. The next one to get the hit.
Doing the same thing he's been doing the last half of the bout. Preparing to the short target and then going long to the second. And Grumier knows what he's doing. So it's a question of whether or not
and have a chance.
Imre can catch him at the right distance.
Got to be active.
Double touch, 13-14.
Work for this hit, Grumier.
My heart is pounding. I know what's going to happen. My heart is still pounding.
Not going to.
Oh my God!
Imre,
We go.
this time
The French coach.
he timed it perfectly and scored with a stop it. You almost never see stop its scored at high level, but this was a stop it where you're scoring going backwards. So in that sense, it's a big mistake on Imre.
This hit, Grumier.
14-14.
Imre is not going to.
There it is. There
See how
it is.
Grumier is stepping backwards.
Yeah.
That's
14.
Grumier's coach is Hugo Brie, who's a world champion himself, and they did fence him a few times.
Oh really?
Having lost a few times. He was a world champion himself in '98.
Ready for it. Hits with a counter and skips away. Who's going to win the world title?
There it is.
Imre playing with the distance again, opening it up and then allowing it to close as
Taking your time
Grumier approaches.
to the hand and to the body. And you see how it wasn't rushed like that other touch.
Poor
Approach.
Grumier.
Playing with the distance again, opening it up and then allowing it to close as Grumier approaches.
To the hand, a moment, and to the body. As he's coming back in. As Grumier was stepping forward, he makes that attack. And he wins.
Geza, Imre,
And my heart is pounding about 120 beats a minute right now because it's so exciting.
15 men's Epee. World
Yeah, it's a really good bout.
Yeah, that was a good bout.
It's
Grumier.
these are two very well established fencers,
World number one.
so you get to see kind of their
We couldn't
their masterpiece.
for a better
Sometimes you'll see somebody coming out of nowhere, and it's exciting to see a young fencer establish themselves. This is the raison d'etre, just the masterpiece for both of these fencers.
Yeah.
and he is surrounded
I love seeing the emotion, especially after a close win like that.
in the air
Oh yeah, yeah.
by his Hungarian team.
There's István Kovács there. He was a great fencer. He was Imre Geza's teammate for those great Hungarian Olympic teams that got silver medals.
We came
Yeah.
to see.
So, any final thoughts on the bout?
Yes. First of all, this was obviously a great bout between some very high-level guys. These are guys who are really at the top of their game. Sometimes you'll see in a championship match an up-and-comer, and it's exciting to see when that happens, just to see somebody new step onto the field and take their place. But it's also really great to see fencers who've been established to reach their personal apex, to fence their personal masterpieces. And
Yeah.
I think that's what this was. And then I had some other thoughts on what we could learn from this bout. And it's this is an example of a match with a lot of tactical awareness from the two fencers, meaning that they were fencing the bout, making adjustments quite often. They weren't trying to use their technique alone or their physical strength or speed by itself. This was really a fencing match, and there was a lot of back and forth. And in this case, the winner was the fencer who made the right adjustments more quickly than their opponent. The winner was Imre. So, going back to the match, there was a stretch where there was 4 touches against Grumier, and he was adjusting, but he was making the wrong adjustments. For example, he instead of going low, he went high, and that didn't work. And then he tried some touches where he was making short attacks to the hand. And part of that might have been involuntary in that he might have been getting a little nervous. And I know for myself, when I get scared, I pull the distance because I don't want to get close, and I feel safer when I'm farther away, which is absolutely wrong. That might have been what happened with Grumier, at least for those few touches. But in that case, when he started to focus on the short target from a longer distance, we see an example of Imre making an immediate adjustment, and he saw that, and he immediately countered with those actions where he just jumped right in when Grumier was going for the short target, and he went for the long target. So in that sense, Grumier set himself up. And Grumier finally chose a winning strategy, I think, with that one beat attack from a long distance with the big lunge that didn't have the
large
the
coupe
point, coupe point. It was a classical French beat with a point going just straight forward. I think we talked before how we surmised or hypothesized that maybe he wasn't doing that earlier in the bout because he was afraid of Imre's parry ripostes and getting caught up in Imre's blade. So maybe it wouldn't have worked in the long run, but it certainly worked that one time. And he didn't really stick with it. Who knows if he would have won the bout with it. Another winning strategy they didn't really stick with was deceiving Imre's attacks on the blade. He scored 1 point with that early, but he didn't really try it again. I don't know why. Maybe that was a different path he could have taken.
Yeah.
And then for Imre, it seemed like he found a winning strategy out in the middle of the bout, or maybe after the first third of the bout, making attack to the preparation attack to the short target, pushing Grumier away, and then when Grumier come back, there'd be a foot tempo, and he would attack the blade to the long target. That's pretty much what he was doing the whole time. Sometimes it didn't work, and this is another key takeaway, I think. Sometimes it didn't work for a lot of different reasons. Grumier didn't fall for it. Imre was a little too hasty. And when you're doing something and it doesn't work, a good fencer will do an analysis and will ask themselves, I just got hit. Am I doing something wrong, or am I doing it right but not in the best way?
Yes.
Do I need to just change what I'm doing, or do I just need to fine-tune it? And Imre, in this case, made the right choice in that he stuck with his plan and just fine-tuned it. And that's how he scored the last touch. And the last touch was the perfect execution of that strategy. And he won any world championship. He's a world champion. So there's some good takeaways there. It's an example of being tactically aware and making the right choice at the right time.
Yeah.
I'm just going on and on. So
Yeah.
I hope I'm not talking too much.
There are two things that you mentioned that I think are worth talking a little bit more about. One of them is that I think a lot of people are under the impression that the really top fencers don't get nervous, but they absolutely do get nervous. It's just for different reasons than lower level people do. Like you said, you're in the finals of world championships, you're a few touches down, maybe you'll start to get a little nervous that you're not going to be able to come back. Or maybe you get ahead and you start getting a little nervous, like you could win world championships. And the people who ultimately do win these titles are the ones who are able to control those nerves better. Because you can't just not be nervous. You just have to learn how to deal with it when you are.
Sure. And what you said to begin this thought, that it's a mistake to think that these top level fencers don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
They're not perfect.
Yeah.
What separates the winners from the losers and champions are how quickly they can identify and correct those mistakes. But everybody makes mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that for an up-and-coming fencer is, I think, a very valuable lesson.
Yeah, totally.
Makes the higher level opponents much more beatable.
Yes, definitely.
Take them off their pedestal.
Yeah, they're just people. They have more experience than you, and they've had more success than you. But that doesn't mean that that people things stop happening to them, right? Like they still get nervous, they still make mistakes. And the other thing that you mentioned before that I want to talk about is Grumier was trying to adjust, but at first what he was doing wasn't working. So he tried a few more things, and he did find a strategy that was working for him eventually. And I think it's important to realize that if you make an adjustment and it doesn't work, you shouldn't just throw up your hands and be like, oh, well, it's just not working. Think more about what wasn't working and how you can make a different adjustment.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, as Grumier did.
Yes.
And I mean, he was in there fighting the whole way. And he's a great fencer. And maybe he'll see this video and he'll comment. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, it would.
All right, so two other things really quickly. I will mention something I read a long time ago that's relevant for fencing, and some of your viewers may already know about it. It came out of the military, out of military aviation, and there was a fighter pilot from 50 years ago or so who came up with a theory that he called the OODA loop, OODA. And the theory that he came up with, and he became an academic and he did a lot of strategy stuff for the U.S. military. The idea is that you're sitting in a plane, you're fighting some other plane in air combat, really fun stuff like that. And what you're doing is you're observing, you're orienting, you're deciding, and you're acting, and you repeat. And it's a cycle, it's a loop. You observe, you orient, you decide, you act. And the winner of that contest will be the player who can do that more quickly than the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of stuff on the internet, so if any viewers are interested, I recommend it. But it's very relevant to fencing because that's exactly what we saw in this match.
Yeah, definitely.
And in this case, Imre was able to go through that loop more quickly and better and more accurately than Grumier. And then the final thing I'll say. Sorry. Any thought on that, or I don't want to.
Yeah, I think that it's so important in fencing because what you see actually happening is such a small part of what is going on in a fencing match. And I always say that the most important things are the ones that you don't see happening. So like with every advance, you need to be prepared for a bunch of different things that your opponent could do. And it's kind of about balancing probabilities of what you see them doing and how they're reacting to you. And you pick the most logical choice based on what you've seen so far. And learning how to adjust those probabilities is a very important part of fencing. I think that's especially the case in epee, where you're spending a lot more time preparing and evaluating each other. And that kind of goes back to what you were just saying about the OODA loop.
Well, yeah, I think you're onto something. And to that point, I'll say, people say that fencing is like physical chess. I say it's more like physical poker. In that, in any given moment, you don't know the odds. When you look at a chessboard, there's no uncertainty. But when you're playing poker, you don't know the odds. You can make a guess, and a good player can figure out the odds better than another player. And a good player has the courage to commit when the odds are in their favor. Like an epee match and a fencing match. So I think fencing is, the better analogy is physical poker.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. I like that a lot.
Well, the last thing I'll say to your question of final thoughts is that the end game for this match was very similar to the end game for Imre's Olympic final match a year later, where in that case versus Sang-Young Park, he was winning 14-10, and I was sitting there watching the live cast on my screen, and I could not believe it. I could not believe that this 41-year-old guy is going to be Olympic champion, and I was cheering for him because I was an old guy too, and I thought, well, maybe I can. But anyway, but what happened then is he kind of did the same thing he did in this match, where he really pushed hard. In this match, he was pushing hard. He was pretty much the only time he was at Grumier's end of the strip in the end, and he did that versus Sang-Young Park, and it didn't work out for him in that case. Sang-Young Park picked him apart. He took the initiative and took it to him as he was coming forward.
Yeah.
Whereas in the rest of the bout, he was pretty much hanging back and winning on parry ripostes. So maybe there's something in Imre's personality that he likes to shut down the match, and he puts the pressure on at the end. And in this case, in 2015 it worked, in 2016 it didn't. So
yeah,
that's what I think.
I wish he'd hung back more at the Olympics as well.
Yeah, it was painful.
It was painful. It's always really cool to see a comeback like that from someone young and as enthusiastic as Park is, but it's also just really sad for the other person as well. So yeah.
Good for Sang-Young Park. Good for him, an awesome fencer, and we'll be watching him for years to come, I bet. But it is painful, and there's a lot of catharsis for Imre.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Okay. Ciao.